Hello, Internet. Coming back to you today with a follow-up to our most successful video to date, tips for success in an operations or chief of staff role. So we're going to expand upon that first video today. So first things first, a little recap from video number 1. What are those kind of broad tips for success if you find yourself in an operations, chief of staff, CEO type role even? Number 1, strong rapport. The chief of staff, the COO, and the CEO or principal of the organization have got to be on the same page. They've got to have a good working relationship. 2, clarity on the organization's priorities and objectives. We certainly don't have number 2 without number 1, but equally important. You can have a good rapport, but this communication and this clarity, very important as well. 3, a focus on efficient resource allocation. Big component of leadership. Reaching those goals and objectives on time, within budget, and that boils down to one thing: how you manage the company's resources, the team's resources, whatever that budget or that grouping might be. 4, confidence and diplomacy skills. And this really occurs in what we'll elaborate on in today's video, but when you spot a need and that might conflict with the existing priorities. Your job is not to be a yes man. Your job is to quickly address whatever issues you've spotted. And if the principal says, no, we're not going to deal with it, then okay, fine. At least you've brought it to that person's attention. But bottom line here, you've got to have the ability to step up and have a frank conversation. Again, that goes back to that general rapport. But 2 great books, anybody entering into this role to get you started. The first one is called Rocket Fuel, and the second one is called Linchpin. And you can find both of those books on the My Ascent library reading list in the ascentmethod.com blog. So today, we're going to take a look at my time in the private sector, coming into a high-functioning organization, but again, identifying some of those areas that needed to be fine-tuned or improved a little bit. So when I joined the private sector, the company that I joined, OCTG and line pipe distribution. So what did that mean? Well, we had a complex international supply chain dealing with oil field steel products. Now, this company, by any measure, very successful, consistently clearing 9 figures in revenue. It's $100 million. So on paper, balance sheet, sales, all that stuff. Company looked great, and it was. But when I got in there and I saw some of the processes and the systems, the actual commercial behavior that was going on, I noticed that there were a couple things that didn't meet the organization's otherwise high standards. And so specifically, I turned my focus to the risk management system within the company. Why? Well, when I got in there and I evaluated the contracts, the commercial behavior, all of the things that made up the risk management strategy for the company, I noticed that there were some gaps that left us, frankly, unnecessarily exposed to several risks. Either risks that shouldn't have been allocated to us in the first place, or risks that existing language in the contracts or, again, commercial behavior wasn't going to adequately address those risks. The company had evolved. The company wasn't always running at a 9-figure clip. And it became clear to me that as the company's success grew, that risk management hadn't really grown along with it. So I took it upon myself to figure out what needed to be done, and then most importantly, how to do it. And that's really the focus of today. I want to use this process as an anecdote for how to effectively manage change as a chief of staff, as a COO. So first things first, ran into resistance, but we've always done it that way. Okay? But the way you're doing it doesn't sufficiently take care of the risks that your company's exposed to. So we can continue to do it this way and be unnecessarily exposed, or we can start doing some of the work now and we can close some of those risk areas. So again, this is confidence and diplomacy. You know what needs to be done and you know why, but you need to be able to get that buy-in. So there's some strategy that goes into that initially. Now, into the actual nuts and bolts of the project. This was a deep, multifaceted project that touched and concerned pretty much every aspect of the organization. Procurement, how we buy, the risk with the manufacturers, acquisition of product. It's not just simple buy, done, whatever. Again, complex international supply chain. Materials being purchased, brought overseas, about a 6, 8, 10, 12 week lead time, depending on where we were buying from. So a lot can happen in that time. So item number 2, inventory and logistics. Once the material is purchased, once the PO's been cut, what can happen along the way? What were some of the issues that we'd encountered that, well, we weren't prepared for that? So number 3, finally, the customer facing side, sales. So procurement, inventory and logistics, sales, inbound, ownership, outbound. We had to look at all 3 facets, and all 3 facets, they all needed updating. So each of those steps required its own legal evaluation, looking at contracts, looking at maybe adopting master agreements, evaluating best practices, both internally and from what I could do in my own research. And so once I got all of the moving parts together, then it became about doing that big picture evaluation. So once I got all of it on my desk, started to see a few things stepping out. 1, clarify my goals and objectives for the project. Yes, tighten up risk management, but specifically, what do we have to do? So number 2, identify those biggest risk gaps. Start setting my priorities and identifying some key metrics that will let me know, are we making progress? Is success on this path, or do we need to make some adjustments so that we can reach our objective? So once I got through the full evaluation and really got a deep understanding of all of the things that were going on, all the moving parts, then we could start drafting some documents and engaging the external subject matter experts. Now, I'm a lawyer, I have business training, but this was not something where I had a lot of deep experience or knowledge. So we brought in outside experts, outside counsel to help with drafting. They also have contract forms, so rather than me writing the entire thing, we can adopt some templates to help speed the process up. We had to work with our vendors, understanding their steel procurement habits, how that impacted quality control, the manufacturing process for pipe, steel, all of it. Getting that understanding so that, again, where are the risks? How do we mitigate those risks? And so externally, we got pushback as well, but we've always done it this way. So again, how do you get that buy-in? Well, it was really the same as the internal efforts. When this is done, it will give us the opportunity to focus more on the revenue generating side of business. And that's exactly what happened. Once we got this all in place and reached our objective of overhauling this risk management process, the speed and efficiency of our business accelerated dramatically. We spent less time negotiating POs. We spent less time worrying about which trucking companies can we use for this, that, or the other. How do we figure out rail contracts? We worked out master service agreements. We worked out master trucking agreements, master purchase agreements. How do we simplify things while at the same time covering our risk? And that was really the goal, and that's what we set out to do. So subsequent iterations, we didn't do this just once. We had to do it multiple times. When we brought on new vendors, opportunity to evaluate. Customers started bringing in some new policies, procedures for their procurement. Opportunity to evaluate. Moving from almost exclusively truck to a lot of rail-based logistics. Opportunity to evaluate. And we're just fine-tuning at the edges at that point. So it doesn't really require all of the labor up front, all of the diplomacy and politicking that you might have to go through. But what changed as a result of all of this? Again, once we had those agreements in place, agility, a tremendous business asset, the ability to see an opportunity and not worry about, do we have all the risk management issues taken care of? They're done. We can confidently move forward because we know all we've got to do is work out the details of the transaction. All the other red tape, it's taken care of. So this is where a good manager, a good leader spends their time. Forward planning and strategic thinking. I recently read a Harvard Business Review article that said 97% of the executives they surveyed, over 10,000 people, the one single biggest factor that they said contributed to organizational success, opportunity for strategic planning and strategic thinking. And yet a full 96% of those executives surveyed said they did not make enough time for it. So as a chief of staff, as an operations executive, as a leader, period, title doesn't really convey leadership. You want to be a leader, this is your opportunity to stand out. Step back, evaluate the big picture, engage in some of that strategic thinking. Do things so that the principal, the CEO, can be freed up to engage in strategic thinking. Again, if you're clear on the objectives and you're clear on how to efficiently allocate resources to achieve those objectives, good. Then the other leaders within the organization have the opportunity to look out over the horizon, look for those opportunities, spot those obstacles, and steer around them. So, how is your business functioning? That's the question you should constantly be asking yourself. Is the business set up in a way that will allow us to achieve our future goals and support those goals in our ongoing growth? What got you here today won't necessarily get you where you want to go. So what do you need to be doing to adapt, evolve, upgrade? That's leadership. It's about unlocking that potential. It's about laying the path for those on your team, within your company, helping them understand where to go, how they fit in. So, hopefully that gives you a little insight into some of my thought process on how to effectively manage a change process, how to identify what you need to do, and then how to move forward. So, thank you as always for watching. If you haven't watched the first video, please go back and check it out. Otherwise, I'm always available. Look forward to hearing from each and every one of you about how we can help you unlock your potential as a leader and executive. Thanks for watching.